10 years old. My father started me from the time I could stand up. He would sit behind me and teach me how to throw punches. You grow up in a neighborhood and there's other kids. If you get picked on, some kids, what do? They run away and go cry, and other kids get taught we don't want to hear that. And they teach you, your parent teaches you how to defend yourself, and that's what they expect you to do. To be a fighter takes determination, a lot of balls. I feel it takes something that comes from a background, an abnormal background, as you would say. Somebody that wasn't brought up nice and proper, somebody was brought up pretty tough. Because I knew how to fight and I could defend myself at a young age, I remember getting in fights when I was 5, 6 years old, and I had rage.
Where do you think your rage came from?
It came from, same rage his came from, the home life, abusive home life. My father was terribly abused by his mother, physically abused by his mother, and I was physically abused by him. That brings rage, even at a young age. And I'm talking about real rage. We used to watch fights, me and my father. Growing up, we watched a lot of fights. We even used to get films, 8mm films. We'd set those up, and we watched a lot of fights. And I got interested, and my father brought me first. I don't even know how he found out about it, but Echo Park. Echo Park was run by Arthur McCanty, the referee. It was like for beginners, for kids that really never fought a day in their lives. And there was a trainer, he had Johnny Pearsall. His name was Ham Willoughby. He was also a fighter, very good fighter from what I understood. Johnny Pearsall was the #1 ranked contender of the world at the time, light heavyweight. Ham Willoughby came over to my father. I was there for maybe like 2 weeks. It was like 3 days a week or whatever it was. It was a good program for kids. Again, getting you off the street, you learn a little something to discipline. But if you wanted to move further, if you were really interested in fighting, which I was, you had to move along. So Ham Willoughby came over to my father. My father was working with me, and he gave his credentials. And, he said, I'd like to train your son. He has talent. And I'd like to bring him to the next level, if that's what he wants to do. My father said, sure, why not? He said, but I'm not talking about here. Talking about, there's a place on South Franklin, it's called Percy Jackson Youth Center, Timeout Boxing. He says, and that's where I work with real fighters. And then we started going there. And then I met guys like Johnny Davis, Eddie Davis. I met Mo Stallings, Bob Starling. There were some really, really good fighters that came out. Howard Davis Jr. Would come in there. There was some major guys in that gym. And the first guy we meet was Jojo Moore, who ran Percy Jackson Youth Center. He ran the boxing program. And it had a ring, and it was a wrestling mat on the floor, taped together, two pieces of rubber wrestling mats. It had ropes around it that would clip into the floor, because they would break it down if they needed to use it as a catering hall and things like that. So they would have to break down the ring. And this was my first experience with a real boxing, not Echo Park. Echo Park was beautiful. It was a county park or a town park, a beautiful pool. The place, if you spit on the floor, you'd probably get arrested. Here, if you spit on the floor, they paid you. I remember my father looking at me, and I'm looking at him, like, holy shit, what the fuck? Place stinks to high heaven. And come in, and Jojo Moore, who ran the boxing program, Jojo Moore trained Bob Starling, Eddie Davis, Mo Stallings, and Johnny Davis, and a few and other guys. He was the head trainer there and really knew the business. His brother was a fighter. He was a fighter. His brother was Sonny Moore. You gotta remember, this is 1975. John and Eddie Davis and Mo Stallings, they were all in the Olympic trials. But you had another guy down there, Dave Russell, who, another guy, in any other given time, would have been in the top 10 for sure. They threw him with he was a middleweight, like 160 pounds. They threw him up there with heavyweights. Fought heavy, light heavy, all the way down the middle. And Pete Brodsky was there. Pete Brodsky had just fought in the Maccabee games in Israel. There weren't many kids there. It wasn't a kid gym. It wasn't, I had to go other places to get boxing, but those guys, every one of them, Mo, Eddie, John, they would box with me. And Eddie was more of a come forward brawler. Everything he did was poetry, like it was a poetry in motion. As he would come forward, he would punch. And very good head movement, very good slipping ability. John was a boxer. John moved. John was a lot light on his toes, a bit faster than Eddie. They both beat Jerry Cooney in the amateurs. John knocked out Jerry Cooney. Eddie beat him in the decision, in the Golden Gloves. Mo Stallings was the best out of all of them. The problem with Mo was they were trying to do the same thing to Mo that they did to his brother, Bob. They were throwing him in there with everybody. But he was smart enough, he wasn't going to be used. And he saw it going that way. And he folded them up. He hung up the gloves, went back down south, opened up, from what I understood, a bunch of beauty parlors, and was very successful. You got to give a guy credit. You really do. Fuck you. You're not using me. I'm more talented than that. You ain't doing that to me. Right. So what they did was they took me under their wing. And that's the way they were. They're not just me. Other young fighters that would come in also. And they would teach you. They'd work with you. And they'd let you know, too, when you were dogging it. One time, I think I was boxing with Eddie. I pulled a muscle or something, and my back was bothering me. And I was kind of like, laying off, and Eddie said, you don't, whatever he said, you're dogging it, or you're not giving it your all, or something. I said, my back's bothering me. And he said, he turns to me and he says, an excuse is like an asshole. Everybody's got one. He said, I grew up working on a farm. You think my back don't bother me? I would try to emulate. If I wanted to box and move, I try to box like John. If I was a guy I wanted to go after and back up, I try to box like Eddie. And I trained there until I was getting ready to go in the gloves the first year. Because what I was doing was I was coming down here. This was like 80, 81. I was coming down here to get boxing. This was a PBC, right. So it was a much younger, they had kids here. Yeah. A lot of amateurs, not that many pros at that time. Later on, it became a very good pro gym, this place. Pete Brodsky ran this place, and he had some really, really good amateurs down here. I mean, really good guys. Wild Bill Samus, who went a distance with Mike Tyson in the amateurs. He was a heavyweight, Wild Bill Samus. Mac Brown had started in Percy Jackson, that's where I met him, but he came down here to train in the amateurs. You had some really good amateurs down here, and other gyms came here. other amateur gyms would come down. You had a lot of bikes. So like in '81, I decided I'm just going to train here. Well, I won the kid gloves. Went to Junior Olympics. Got to the finals. Matter of fact, Mike Tyson was there that year. Had a lot of smokers when I was younger and older. Wasn't gold. Well, then I went to gloves. I won the Empire State Games in 1981 at 156 pounds. I was 17. From that tournament, you can go to the Nationals, you can go to the U.S. team. I mean, that was a major tournament. It's a shame they did away with that program. And that's when I knew I want to be a pro fighter. That's when I knew that this is for me. I win the Empires, and then the following year, I had another year of school, and I went to Marine Corps. And the reason I went to Marine Corps was I had to do an extra 6 months in school, in high school, to graduate. And I was living with my father and my stepmother. They were making sure I was going to graduate. Now, I remember this like it was yesterday. My father, he looks at me, he says, "Are you graduating?" I said, "Yeah, they say in February I've got enough credits, I'm going to graduate." And he said, "Well, I'm going to tell you something." I said, "Yeah, what's that?" He says, "Well, you better go find a real job or go in the military, because you ain't staying here." He said, "I took you as far as I'm taking you," which is a very strange thing to hear when you're 18 years old. Probably the best thing he ever did for me, that's for sure. So I ended up I went and joined the Marine Corps. I was a wild kid. I was a street kid, naturally. And what I understood about the Marine Corps was, don't fuck around. Do what you're told to do. This is their world. And you fuck around, not only are they going to hurt you, they're going to throw you in jail. Right. So I did the 4 years in the Marine Corps, active. Came out, went in the reserves, ended up in Desert Storm. Ended up getting called for Desert Storm. While I was already turned pro, I already had about 5 pro fights when I got orders to go, to go back to active duty. So that was interesting. That was a scary fucking situation.
How long were you overseas for?
3 months. 3 months. It ended, which I was happy about, because my orders read for the duration. If that was Afghanistan, I'd still be there.
Right. Did you do any boxing in the Marines?
Yes, yeah, I boxed on the team. I came out of the Marine Corps and in '88, and decided, that's when I said I'm going to turn pro. The one thing about G. Moore was, not like some of these other guys in the business who promised you everything and threw you to the wolves. G. Moore told you, you're going to fight. You want to be a fighter, I get you to fights, sink or swim. And don't ask me to borrow any money. He did, he said that, I'm not kidding you. I think it was my 3rd pro fight. I'm fighting in Atlantic City. Marc Randazzo in Atlantic City, Harris Marina in Atlantic City. Now, I used to go watch the Davis brothers fight in Atlantic City. And when I got there, and I'm in the dressing room, you know what you said to yourself? You made it. You made it.
Weighed in at an even 184 pounds. This young man is looking for his 2nd straight win in as many pro bouts from East Meadows, New York. Ladies and gentlemen, here is James, the Gunner Drubin.
Bobby Cassidy trained me. Bobby Cassidy explained range to me. The first time he ever worked with me, I came back to the corner, and he said, "You know how to fight." He said, "But you have a problem." I said, "What's that?" Because you don't know, you don't realize it. And he said, "You don't understand range." I said, "What do you mean?" And he said, "Listen to me. When you go out, when the bell rings and you go out, make an imaginary line on the canvas. When you want to hit the guy, step over that imaginary line. That doesn't mean just take a step. That means step to the point where now you're able to hit the guy. When you don't want him to hit you, step over the line, step behind the line." He explained it so simply that unless there was something wrong with you, you would understand it. That's what no other although Ham Willoughby was a great trainer and understood boxing, he didn't understand how to make it so simple. Bobby Cassie simplified it so much that it was just, oh, okay. Yeah. Bobby Cassie knew boxing, boy, and he was a good teacher. He was a terrific teacher. He just understood how to talk to fighters, like, if you understand what I'm saying. Later on, I also used Frank Daly. Yep. Frank Daly worked with me. Blue Horizon was, again, a small venue. The balcony from the ring, you could almost touch it. That's how cool. So if you're sitting in the balcony, I mean, you're looking right at the fight. You're almost in there with the fighters. I was happier to fight there than to fight like at the Felt Forum. Philadelphia, which probably has the best fight crowd, knowledge-wise, and enjoying it, probably than anywhere I've ever fought.
Now you had the opportunity, I think you sparred with 3 or 4 heavyweight champions. List the guys that you sparred with and talk a little bit about some of that.
I boxed actually with 5 world champions. I boxed with Donny Lalonde several times. And they used to say, you know, before I boxed with him, I'd hear things about, well, he really doesn't, he had shoulder problems in his left hand, his left arm. He's not a really good jabber. He's not that good of a left-hand puncher. Yeah, right. Bullshit. He's only a right-hand fighter, they used to say. Yeah, okay. He punched great with both hands. He was a very rangy guy, a guy who understood range also very well. His style gave me fits. Lennox Lewis, I was a chief sparring partner for him. I learned a lot there. I learned how to get hurt. I learned how to get really busted up. What Lennox would do is he'd use the left hand. You can't even say he'd use it as a jab because he wouldn't. He would use it as a range finder. As soon as he touched you with it, he dropped that fucking right hand on you. It was like getting hit with a bomb.
What kind of guy was he?
He was a very nice guy. Lennox was a nice guy. At that time, I was with him when he was getting ready to fight Razor Ruddock. He wasn't the champ yet. He was young, a little cocky, but nice. So I was in camp with Tony Tubbs. Tony Tubbs very personable. Tony Tubbs would hang out. He'd hang out with you. Go out, come on, let's go the fuck out. Let's go drinking. He's in camp. He wants to go drinking. Didn't smoke, he was nuts, but he was funny as hell. Mike Weaver I was in camp with. Mike Weaver, personal, very personable guy, nice guy, quiet, very quiet man. I retired. I fought Vaughn Bean, and I retired after the Bean fight. I wasn't taking it serious, really, anymore. I really was a cruiserweight. I was fighting up at heavyweight. And Vaughn Bean stopped me on cuts.
Now, Bean, a couple of fights later, you fought for the title, right? Who did you fight?
Vaughn Bean fought Michael Mora and Evander Holyfield. He got 2 world title shots. And went the distance with both guys. If I was smart, what I would have did was really not box anymore, meaning in the gym even. And so I retire, and I start training fighters. But whenever somebody would come down here, Berbick, sparred down here with Berbick, and Witherspoon come down. He was getting ready to fight at the Westbury Music Fair. And he needed boxing. So I'll box with you. I'll get you ready for the fight. I said, all right. And he wasn't in shape. And not that I was in tip-top shape, but I was in better shape than he was, you know. So what I did was I jumped on him and really took it to him. His trainer was Slim, the guy named Slim. And he yells over, at the time Pete was helping me out. He was working at my corner while I was sparring with me. Slim says, hey, Pete, do me a favor. Tell that kid to slow down. We're not looking for that kind of work. Bullshit, though. I've been in boxing long enough. If you slow down, they're going to come on and hurt you. So fuck you. Fuck you. And I stayed doing exactly what I was doing. You don't want the work, don't take the work. But I'm not slowing down for anybody. Now what ends up happening is, it's the night of the fight. I'm training fighters by now. I'm training Richie Kiley. Richie Kiley was fighting the same night at Westbury Music Fair. Witherspoon's opponent doesn't show up. Dennis Rappaport, comes in the dressing room, Richie's dressing room. He says, hey, Jamie, we got the main event just fell out. And he says, do you want to fight Witherspoon? I said, well, what were you paying the opponent? He said, $5,000. I said, I want 10. He says, yeah, all right. ask him Rappaport for 10,000. It's like asking one of us for $20. Yeah, there you go. I say to Rappaport, I'm ready to go. You know, as soon as I finish with Richie, I'll come in the back and I'll start getting ready. All right. Next thing I know, I get called into an office at the Westbury Music Fair. Howie Albert he's the commissioner. He says to me, where's your license? I says, listen, I can't find the license. I says, I just moved, and I can't find the book. I can't find it. And he says, well, I'm not going to let you fight tonight. I said, I just fought Vaughn Bean 3 months ago. He stopped me on cuts. It's a 3-month suspension. My cuts are healed. I says, Al Gavin's my cutman. He works my corner. I'll go get him. He'll witness that I just fought a 10-round fight. I mean, I was in the gym boxing with this man every day for the last 2 weeks, meaning Witherspoon. What are you talking about? And the fucking guy wouldn't allow me to fight. He said no. And I could have beat Witherspoon that night. I could have out-hustled him.
Talk about some of the fighters you trained and why it was important for you to stay in the business that way.
Well, yeah, so what ends up happening is I retire, and I wanted to stay in the business. I enjoyed boxing. I enjoyed the people in boxing at that time. When I retired, Richie Kiley turned pro. And I knew Richie Kiley since he was 9 years old. From here, he started training down here at 9 years old. I was, I think, like 15 or something. And Richie Kiley was turning pro, and he was working with Pete, and I was helping him out a little bit. So Pete said to me, you've been helping Richie out. Do you want to he's turning pro. Do you want to become partners managing and training him? I said, yeah, absolutely. I always liked Richie. He's a good kid. So started training Richie and managing him. And then Kevin Collins fought in the gloves one more time, Kevin, and then decided he was turning pro. Of course, you can't leave out Dilsia.
Yeah.
You know, I can't leave her out. I started training her. That was later on, though. Yeah. This is in the 90s. Yeah. I didn't start working with Dilsia till 2000. I think in 2005 she decided she wanted to box. So that's when I started working with her, and she became a Golden Glove champ. Richie Kiley, we ended up fighting for the title. Fought Pito Cardona on pay-per-view. Hell, he was beating Pito Cardona. I didn't want her to be a fighter. What, are you fucking crazy? What, are you fucking nuts? What's wrong with you? I remember when she started, she was only 10 years old. Yeah. So first she started training. She was training. And then she said, I said, well, I'll work with you. I'll help you out. And then she came and said, I want to be a fighter. I want to fight. I don't want to just train. I want to fight. And the first thing I said to her is, which I would say to any fighter, what would make you want to be a fighter? Right. This isn't an easy sport. This is for animals. And she said, I want to hurt people. So I said, well, I'll tell you what. You train, I'll work with you, and you train, and I will make sure if you're going to do this, you got to run. If you don't run, you're not going to be a fighter. Right. Bottom line. I could vouch for that because I hated running. Yeah. She did it. She did it. She learned fast. It was almost like it was in her, like it's in her blood. She loved it. She was tough. You know, I used to bring sparring down here for her. At 13, 14 years old, I'd bring women down that won the gloves. And she would stay in there with them. Now, one time I don't remember her name, the woman. Dilsia would remember her name. I brought her from another gym. Dilsia was about 14 years old. Well, this girl, and she was a Golden Glove champ, the woman, not a girl. She was much older. And she really put it on Dilsia. I mean, she wasn't taking it easy. It's sort of like what Cassidy did to me at 16. She put it on her. And I wanted to pull her out. After like the first round, I said, I'm pulling you out. And I said, this woman, she's trying to hurt you. And she said, don't you pull me out. Fuck you, don't pull me out. I said, all right. And she did 3 rounds with her. And after that, she broke down. She was disappointed in herself. And she broke down, she was crying, and that shouldn't have happened. And I said, listen to me. There are different levels. You're 14. This is a 28, 29-year-old woman who's won tournaments, senior tournaments. This woman knows how to fight. And what she doesn't know how to do is take it easy. Right. So you take this as a learning experience and you move on. That's it. She caught herself, gave her some water, back to training. That was it.
What year did Dilsia win?
She won the gloves in 2012, 106-pound champ in 2012. In 18, she became a New York City cop. And she's moving along. She really is. She'll be getting a gold shield pretty soon.
Good.
She'll be getting, she'll be moving along. And yeah, tough kid, good kid. Yeah. Tough, very tough.
Anotó 17 para John Frido y 19 para Julie. Y el ganador, James Drubin.
Break. Jab, baby. Get this. No punches, Jamie. No punches. No punches. Break! Let him down. Use your jab.